Tekken is a series I hold dear to my heart, so it's not surprising I own every entry in the mainline series. But that got me thinking, what is the best and worst part of every game? Well, that's what I'm going to be discussing today. Now before we get into this, I have to make a few things clear. Number one, this is my own personal opinion. I'm discussing what I think are the best and worst parts of these games. And number two, I'm only covering the mainline games and the Tekken Tag games. No Tekken Revolution, no Tekken Prime, and no Street Fighter Cross Tekken. You know, stuff like that. With that out of the way, let's get started. When it comes to Tekken 1, I think it's obvious what the worst aspect is. The clunky game feel. Sure, for the time it was fine, but playing it today does not feel very good. Tekken may not have been the first 3D fighter, but it was one of them, and it shows. I personally don't see any reason to play these games in the modern times. Perhaps that's why there've never been a Tekken collection or anything. Now what is the best part of the game? Well, I guess the best part is, it was the first one. Yeah, I know, weird thing to praise, but if we didn't have this game, we wouldn't have the franchise we know and love today. The game may not hold up, but it introduced a lot of iconic characters. Kind of like how the original Street Fighter is trash, but led to Street Fighter II. So can we really be that mad? Alright, Tekken 2. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say in terms of the worst aspect because it's the same thing, the clunky game feel. It's better than Tekken 1, don't get me wrong, but it still feels kind of bad to play today. But I will say if you have a lot of nostalgia for this game, you may be able to look past it. Maybe. Personally, I didn't grow up with this game, so no such thing can mask the clunky feel for me. So what's the best aspect? I'm not really sure. It doesn't have the novelty of being the first game, and its gameplay can't measure up to the others in the series, so yeah, I don't know. I guess the best part is the roster. It did introduce some fan favorites like Jun and Lei Wulong, so that's cool. Yeah, I got nothing else. Tekken 3. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what's the best part of this game. Obviously, it's the game feel. This is when Tekken really got good. Like, Tekken 3 is still fun to play today, even if it is a lot simpler than Tekken games now. But what's the worst aspect? I mean, Tekken 3 is almost flawless for its time. It has a great roster, a lot of content, great gameplay, looks great for a PS1 game. I would really have to nitpick to find a worst aspect to it. And if I guess I had to nitpick, I'd say the Tekken Force mode isn't as fun as some of the other versions of it in future games. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm glad it's there and it is fun, but it was obvious that it was their first attempt at this. Like I said, it's a nitpick. The game is awesome. Tekken Tag Tournament. I think it's obvious that the best part of this game is the tag team mechanic. I mean, that's literally what separates it from all the others. Yeah, the roster's amazing as well, but it's the tag team element that sets this game apart. Also, shout out to Tekken Bowling. As far as the worst aspect, well, much like Tekken 3, I have to get really nitpicky about it, and my biggest nitpick is, did we really need 3 jacks? Yeah, I know, huge nitpick, but come on, the game is nearly perfect. What do you want me to complain about? Tekken 4, the black sheep of the franchise. Honestly, I think I'm one of the few people who love this game. So let's talk about the obvious worst aspect of the game first, the roster. Tekken always had a great roster up to this point, but for some reason Tekken 4 just didn't. Like, it's not bad, but after Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag, it just feels underwhelming. Another thing people complain about were the stages and the verticality of some of them. This actually isn't a problem for me. I actually like that they tried to make you feel like you were fighting in an actual place in the world. More 3D fighters need to do that. It may not have paid off, but I prefer it over the bland circles and box-like stages we get in 3D fighters nowadays. Like, besides Dead or Alive, who else makes dynamic stages like this? Anyway, the best part of this game for me is hard to describe, because it's the atmosphere. The music, the tone, the look of everything. It's not like any other Tekken game. Like I said, hard to describe, but if you played it, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, and also the gameplay is good, but that's a given at this point. Tekken V. This is another one where it's obvious what the worst part about it is. Jinpachi Mishima. Before this game, the final bosses in Tekken weren't that bad, but for a while after Tekken 4, they decided the final bosses needed to be frustratingly hard. Like, you can't even fight them like a normal character sometimes, and I hate it when fighting games do that. As far as the best aspect of the game, that's actually really hard for me. The roster is great, the gameplay is great, the content is great. This is kind of like Tekken 3 2.0. Everything is just great, besides Jinpachi. But I think the best part is the introduction of Lily. Yes, I know technically that was Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, but it's still Tekken 5, so it counts. Tekken 6. You're probably expecting me to say Azazel is the worst aspect. After all, he might even be worse than Jinpachi on the cheapness scale. But no, because I think there is something even worse about this game. Something that even affects other games in the series. And that's the story. Tekken 6 absolutely ruined Jin Kazama. Once the hero of the franchise, he all of a sudden decided to start World War III and kill millions of people. You don't come back from that. Especially since Tekken 8 basically tried to wave it away by saying he's sad about it now. Well, he wasn't sad when he was doing it. The whole story was just a mess. Okay, so what about the best part? Well, I know some may disagree with me, but I like the scenario campaign. From a gameplay standpoint. story notwithstanding. I spent hours playing that mode, unlocking cosmetics, getting money to buy cosmetics. These days you'd have to use real money to buy cosmetics. It makes me look back on this mode with even more fondly than I already did. It was like an entire beat-em-up game in a fighting game. The best Tekken Force mode we've gotten so far. Tekken Tag II, one of my favorite fighting games of all time. Why yes, it is going to be hard for me to pick a worse aspect of this game. So let's start with the best aspect, the roster. This game brought back pretty much everybody. It was like the Smash Ultimate of Tekken. Also, the ability to have one-on-one matches if you wanted was a nice feature. Though at that point you were just kind of playing Tekken 6. As for the worst aspect, I guess there was a bit of a lack of content. Like, Tekken Bowling wasn't there. In fact, I'm sure that's why it was added to Tekken 7, because everyone complained about it. But there also was a good amount of content too, considering that you can't have a scenario campaign with a tag team format. I know people complained about how it was not the best game competitively, but I say screw competitive. I'm a casual player, and this was a casual player's paradise. Okay, Tekken 7, we're in the home stretch now. So once again, the worst part of the game is obvious, and that is the lack of content. The game had a great roster, but not much you could do with them. No survival mode, no team battle mode, no Tekken Force, and a story mode that was made completely pointless by Tekken 8. It's a shame too, because I think the best part of this game is the gameplay, so the lack of content really sucks. Tekken 7 might be the best Tekken game in terms of gameplay we've gotten. I know my casual opinion might not count for much, but like I said, this is all my opinion. Even though Tekken 8 is out, I still find myself going back to play Tekken 7 occasionally. Tekken 8. Okay, so this game is still ongoing, but I can safely say that the worst part of the game is the monetization. No explanation needed. So what about the best aspect? Well, the game is really good, but I don't know if I like it more than 7 or even Tekken Tag II. I guess I could say it's the best looking graphically, though that should be obvious. I mean, it's the latest game. Of course it looks good. Yeah, I got nothing else. It just looks the best. I mean, the game is still ongoing, so maybe the best part of this game hasn't come yet. So there you go. The best and worst parts of every mainline Tekken game. Now I want to hear what you think are the best and worst parts of each Tekken game. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.